Well, here at Newzroom Africa, we believe in celebrating our own. It's with this spirit that we share our huge congratulations to our reporter, Zikhona Tshona, who's been named Journalist of the Year in the TV News category by the National Press Club and the Northwest University.
In fact, Zikhona joins us now on our round table, panting for breath because journalists always on the run. So lovely to see you. Look, I know in most instances, journalists try not to be the story, but this is a good news story. So first things first, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Take us through how you're feeling.
Ooh, I didn't know how to feel yesterday. Apparently I was supposed to prepare an acceptance speech. I had to wing it on stage. But I'm thoroughly humbled, especially to be honored by, among your colleagues, for work that has changed people's lives in South Africa. Because I understand that the work that stood out for the judges on my part is on Ukogununkulukonqulwana, who got a house through our coverage of a story, as well as Usiyabonga, who was able to go to school because of the story that we covered on him.
Your journalism is journalism that makes a difference. Your brand of journalism focuses on telling the human story. And of course, in a country like ours, in fact, just this morning, that isn't always an easy story to tell.
Certainly. And I just think you've got to put yourself into the story. You've got to go through a process of saying that I want the viewer to feel the emotions that I felt when I was going through the process of gathering my information for the story. You want people to watch your story and come out of it saying, wow, I felt that.
Yeah.
So I always go into my story with the attitude of, I want it to be impactful, I want it to be powerful, and I want that to be received by the viewer as well.
And boy, do you get that right. I mean, I do wonder, given how long you've been doing this and given just how many stories you've told, whether there's any that stay with you.
They all do stay with you. I've covered many stories over the years, but you're only as good as your last story.
Yeah.
So you give your all to each and every single story you cover. And I don't necessarily cover stories that are headline stories or stories that are big in the media space or on social media. But for me, to me, they are big and they're important. So I give each and every single story my all. I met someone yesterday actually at the awards who said I interviewed them back in 2015. And I had to just go back a little bit in my mind to just remind myself, oh yes, I remember, and this is what the story was about. I mean, Siyabonga's story, I get stopped everywhere.
Yeah.
You're the one that took the boy to school.
Yeah. In fact, I remember that crossing so clearly. It was on the AM report, actually. As he was getting dressed in his uniform, and you were kind of trying to speak to a very shy Siyabonga at the time. And I imagine part of what happens is, if you can, you get the opportunity to follow up on some of them and see how they're doing, which is what you did do in some instances.
Certainly. One of the judges yesterday came to me and said, you know what I liked is the fact that we didn't have to wonder what happened to the people whose stories you covered. I know that Gogo got a house. I know how she spent her Christmas because we spent Christmas with her at the end of last year. We know that Siyabonga got an award for coming second in maths in his grade.
Oh, wow.
What?
At the end of last year, we covered that. We spoke to his teacher who spoke about his progress. So I think it's important to follow up on stories because viewers also hold on to your stories and they wonder what happens to people in the end. So I think with these two stories in particular, I've been able to follow up at least 3 times on how these people's lives have progressed since we first came into our life or since we first introduced them to our viewers.
Zikhona, you're not always able to tell the good news story side of South Africa, right? In fact, the story that you did this morning, which was our top story here on the channel, was around the murder of those 2 boys in Soweto. That was a harrowing story, and I'm sure you're still coming to terms with it. You and I were chatting on WhatsApp this morning, and you recounted that someone had asked you about the story, and you didn't want to recount the details because they are so harrowing. How do you deal with stories like that? It's
something I haven't mastered. It takes a long time to recover from stories like that, especially when you are given so much detail by families. I struggle in particular with detaching myself now from the family or relatives or people that are around the story. This morning I'm still talking to one of the relatives because they hadn't slept the whole night because they were looking for the children. So yesterday she wants to go to sleep early because she wants to rest. This morning she sent me a good morning message just checking how you are. Imagine someone is checking on how I am. So then we started speaking. So it takes a lot to recover from them. I do believe in speaking and sharing your experience of covering stories, whether it's with your friends, whether it's to a counselor, but definitely let it out, because at the end of the day, we are human and we feel. I try my best to uphold people's dignity when I'm telling their stories, especially when it involves pain and loss. And even with yesterday's story, I struggled a lot because there was so much detail that I think maybe I should keep this one away. Maybe I should share this one. And even visually, what you ask the camera operator to do when you're trying to produce such a story. So it's difficult, and I certainly don't think I've mastered the skill of detaching myself from a story. It takes a lot to recover from some stories. I still drive past some areas today, whether it's in Orange Farm, whether it's through Pretoria, Tembisa. I still drive through areas, and I remember I covered a story here, and this is what it's related to.
Because we're people first.
Certainly.
Right? We're journalists. We tell the difficult stories. We tell the good news stories. But at the end of the day, we are people first. And I think that is probably what stands out for people and what led to you being granted this award. The fact that you are so people-centered.
Right.
Definitely. I think I said in my acceptance speech yesterday.
The one you were winging.
The one I was winging. Is that I'm very grateful that people are so easily able to open up to me and trust me in their most vulnerable state. And I don't take that for granted. I always say I don't take that for granted. People are able to just give me everything that they have of themselves, whether they're in pain, whether they are happy, but they give it to all. But I think for me, it's also, this award means that my work is seen, my work is recognized. Because very often, with the stories that I cover, it's not in the headlines, it's not in everyone's faces. But it's important, and it matters, and it changes people's lives.
I'll tell you what, Zikhona, you do it so well that even if it's not hard enough, and Northwest University, we are beaming with pride, and we can't wait to see what you've got next. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Huge congratulations from all of us here at the channel, but more specifically from the AM Report. Thank you.